Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs podcast, emergency podcast, because Shohei Ohtani has picked a team. It is not your Chicago Cubs. So we're breaking in, doing it as fast as we can. MLB Network's not even up yet. Luke Stuckmeyer,
Look at us.
Pitch Doctor, Brendan Miller, Ryan Herrera. We're ready to go. The chat is up and buzzing already. And it sounds like 10 years, $700 million, and womp womp. After all of that, should we be surprised it's the Dodgers? Should we be? Listen, I'm not surprised it's the Dodgers, guys. And also, I'm not into 10 years, $700 million. Even as a Cubs fan, it's not my money, but I know that 10 years, $700 million would put such constraints on this team. And we don't even know if he's going to be healthy enough to pitch or how long he'll be able to pitch. I'd be out on that deal anyway.
I mean, yeah, it was the team we all expected him to go to in the first place. Like all these smoke and mirrors of he's flying to Toronto, but he's not flying to Toronto.
I think we lost Ryan for a second.
We lost Ryan. That's it.
You know why? He got stunned. And we were trying to get Cody on. We did do a wellness check, but Cody just too distraught to even speak about this.
Ryan's back.
Ryan's back. What are we talking about? Like if he were to play every game, he'd make like $430,000 a game. You know how ridiculous that is?
Nuts. Ryan, you hear us? He's out. You know what though? Listen, this news.
Brendan and Luke show.
You know, I've been waiting for this moment my entire life. Finally, Luke, just you and me. But when the news was announced for $700 million, I expected around like $600 million or so. Even before that, maybe like 550s, you know, somewhere in that range. 700 is absurd, right? Would I have still done that? Yeah. Like I'm a dumb fan. I will give out $1 billion if need be. You can understand though where the Cubs are financially, where they are in their win window. 70 million per year on the annual average value is not what they would prefer, tying up in one player, but who knows, man? Who knows? He's back.
My bad.
He's back. I saw our guy Gary Ross has been in the chat talking about all the deferred money and how much of it might be deferred or is going to be deferred. And that does help the AAV, and it helps the Dodgers build a better team. Apparently that was, according to Jeff Pass, and Ohtani's idea. But you still have to eventually spend the $700 million. And if it's the Cubs, if you don't think they're going to hang that over your head eventually and said, well, we spent $700 million. Like, guys, they were holding the Wrigley renovation over the top of your head. So yeah, $700 million for one player, while they were able to finagle it a little bit, eventually the $700 million has to get paid. So it still eventually would have costed the Cubs $700 million. And who knows, the price might have been more for the Cubs because they're not on the West Coast. Yeah. I don't usually say I'd rather spend it on 3 other players. And of course, the amount of money, whatever the Cubs put together, guys. So let's say the Cubs offered $500 million, which would have been reasonable for me. If they would have offered $500 million, it doesn't mean that they now have $500 million that they're going to spend on somebody else. I think Shohei was the unicorn, and whatever that number was set aside for Shohei, I bet is much smaller for the rest of free agency.
Hold on, I got an update.
Okay.
Well, first of all, sorry. I think the Ohtani news is crashing my internet as it crashed my laptop about 20 minutes ago. But the Godfather has absolved Ricketts of being cheap.
That is big news.
Said nobody's worth that. I'm sorry. This is getting ridiculous. I absolve Ricketts.
Wow.
This is
breaking news.
Breaking news from the Godfather, Michael Culata.
Even with the deferred money, though, it's still $70 million. From my understanding, unless something happened with the new, collective bargaining agreement, it's still $70 million against that luxury tax, right? Wow. So if the Cubs were to have signed him, they're on 185 right now. So add 70 to that, you're at 255 on the second tier.
I think by deferring it, you alleviate some of the luxury tax burden. I'm not like 100% on how I'm not 100% on how all the financials work, but I do believe that it would, alleviate some of that. Like it would obviously take the AAV down if you're deferring it over a number of years. So how much I still haven't seen, I guess, what is being deferred for Ohtani, but I believe it does lower the AAV for for luxury tax purposes.
I mean, it's an historical contract, right? So this is an extreme example. So we'll see how that works out. I mean, my understanding from years past is even if you don't give out, you give out in the form of bonuses or what have you, if you defer that 5 years after the termination of the contract, you're still at an average rate taxed on that on an average per year basis. But yeah, I mean, maybe with something like this as extreme, there's a way to get out of that. But the way I'm operating now, unless things change and we find out new information, it is 70 million against the 24 luxury tax. That's the way I think I'm interpreting it right now.
And to be perfectly honest, like, forget about it now. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter what that is against the Dodgers. He's going to the Dodgers. He's not on the Cubs. The point is that right now, this was holding up the Cubs from doing anything else. He finally decided it's the Dodgers, not the Blue Jays, not going back to the Angels, none of it. Okay, what's next? I've already moved on. He's not coming to the Cubs. I don't know if I ever fully sold myself on the fact that he could be a member of the Cubs. I hoped. Maybe I gave it 25% chance of happening. Maybe it was better than that. But okay, he's not. Let's move on. And he has sailed. Shohei has sailed. It's the biggest contract ever. They've got to deal with that. Should we really be surprised that the two big players finally came off the board? Soto was traded to the Yankees, and Ohtani is signed with the Dodgers. Okay, Cubs, go about your business. Cody Bellinger's still on the board. He's obviously not going to the Dodgers, and he's not going to the Yankees. I don't think either one of those is happening. So Bellinger, to me, Bellinger, priority number one right now. Like, you have to go back to Bellinger and say, what's it going to take? Now, I'm not going to go $300 million with Cody Bellinger. I'm not going to do that deal either. Even though that may be the price of doing business now, I'm not going to go $300 million with Cody Bellinger.
You imagine the two suitors for Bellinger would have been New York or LA. And as you pointed out, both those teams just got their primary target. So you have to imagine it does leave Bellinger's market a little less in demand. And as a result, in even what you guys were talking with Morosi about Bellinger's potential contract negotiations extending into January, maybe this does accelerate it. And maybe 200 plus million, 300-ish that Boris was hinting at is not going to be anywhere near that. And maybe more so towards the MLB trade rumors projection around 150 or so, around 6 years. If that's the case, you sign that contract tomorrow.
Yeah. Did you see the earlier chat that said 700 million? The Arizona Coyotes are worth 645 million of the NHL. Like, that's how insane we're talking right now. Come on. Like, I don't know where we're headed with baseball. I know that I don't want that to be the case. Now that said, the Arizona Diamondbacks didn't have a salary like that, and they went all the way to the World Series. So maybe they still have it right. And I also think it shows that the two longtime powers in baseball are desperate. They're desperate. The Yankees went and did that deal. I don't actually think it was a bad deal for the Yankees, but they were desperate to do something big, and they haven't really been a player in several years. And the Dodgers, for all the praise that I give them, and they've been spectacular because they go from one guy to the next guy and they keep churning it out and they're relevant every year. What do they have?
Yeah.
They got one championship just like the Cubs, and theirs has a little asterisk next to it. So the Dodgers have spent big money and they've done a great job all around, but in reality, they don't have any more than the Cubs do. So this may make them much closer to that, but I hope it means that they will now start to shove some pieces off. Maybe I saw Gary saying, all right, Bellinger probably ends up at the Blue Jays because they've got all this money to spend. Yeah, and I still hope they think they need to mix it up more than that too, which is why we started the crazy, hey, trade for Vlad Guerrero, and then it turned into, oh, well, what about Bo Bichette? I still think pieces could be moved around that could be successful for the Cubs. Yeah. There's a way out of this off season still.
So Ryan, you were right. So Jeff Passan tweeted out, I don't know if you saw that. I think you just did as well. So there is some way to defer some of this money in a way that you reduce the competitive tax burden. What that is, I'm unsure. But this is a weird deal. Nothing like this has happened. So we'll see what it ends up being.
I'm actually looking. So Freddie Freeman, the contract he signed with the Dodgers was 6 years, $162 million. deferred money over a number of years, and so it dropped the initial contract value to 6 years, $148 million.
Okay.
So instead of being $27 million base salary, like a 20, whatever the luxury tax salary would have been as far as AAV goes, it was more like a 24 million tax. So it wasn't like a huge, massive drop, but it did drop it, I guess.
No, it makes a difference. That 5 million or so would make a difference.
Over the life of the contract, it does drop the value. So again, we haven't really gotten the salary. When they say a majority of a salary or a large whatever, like you're expecting it to be a lot of money deferred, but since we don't know the contract details, we don't know what the hit against the competitive balance tax hit is. But I guess as we've seen with other contracts, like the taking the deferred money will lower the competitive balance tax hit, which when they're saying like this allows the Dodgers more financial flexibility and the ability to put
improve
players around him, put other improvements to the roster.
Well, that's scary.
That's what it means.
That's scary.
I'm curious if anybody, we've got almost 500 people in the live chat right now just talking Shohei Ohtani to the Dodgers. I'm curious, send your comments out there. I'm curious if anybody out there or anybody here on the show, Brendan, Ryan, me, does anybody think, let's say, okay, the number's 700 million. Does anybody think the Cubs should have offered 725, 750? Would you be just as freaked out right now if the Cubs did land him, but landed him to money deferred, but you threw $750 million at him? To me, I'd be more freaked out on that side of it, to be honest.
If the reduction in the tax burden is significant, where it does allow the Cubs to improve, let's say the AAV is 40 million per year, even though I imagine that's a huge deference. If that is the case, I would be fine with it. I don't care more so about the total sum. I care how much it costs the Cubs on a year-to-year basis, because in the past, that's how they've operated on, where they haven't made trades at the deadline due to those tax implications. So if it's $2 billion, but you're only paying 40 years against that competitive payroll tax, I'm fine with it. It's not my money. I just want the Cubs to win as much as possible.
I'm not either, Brendan, but I just believe while that's the way they've been operating, 700 million is a different type of number than any other thing that they've been looking at. So while they may say, well, yeah, it's tax deferred, I think that the organization would look at it and say, ooh, we just spent 700 million. We better tighten the purse strings a little bit.
I think the other thing I look at it is I don't, and this is not reporting or anything. I look at it in the wording that a lot of these, national reporters are using is that it was Ohtani's idea to do this. It makes it, in my head at least, pretty clear that he wanted to go to the Dodgers. I don't think the Cubs could have gotten him with a deferred contract like that, because if it was his idea, it's pretty clear that he wanted to go to the Dodgers. As long as the Dodgers were going to pay up to what he wanted, or at least close to what he wanted, it's pretty clear that the deferred money idea was because he wanted to be a Dodger, right? And he wanted the Dodgers to be able to put a roster around him and Mookie Betts and whoever else to actually win World Series. So I don't look at it as like the Cubs could have gotten the same exact deal. Honestly, I don't know what it would have taken to get a deal like that done for
more than 700 million.
Probably, right? Yeah, that's my thinking is that I would have taken even more than that to get Ohtani to want to pick the Cubs over the Dodgers and to be willing to take this kind of a deal. So just the wording that's out there is it seems to me that he wanted to be a Dodger. He's willing to do what he's willing to meet the Dodgers halfway as long as they pay him a lot of money, right? I don't look at it as the Cubs could have signed this exact deal too.
It always seemed like the Dodgers, right?
Yeah, it was.
Because they've been competitive on a year-to-year basis for the better part of over a decade. Whereas from the Cubs' perspective, they've had some valleys as of recent. So if Shohei is intent on maximizing his chances to win the World Series from the Dodgers versus the Cubs' perspective, it's an easier argument to make that the Dodgers are the more likely team to win on a perennial basis. Unfortunately, that's the negative of having the 2021 and above slump and slight rebuild that we've had. And Southern California, familiarity where he's been, it is Southern California. I'm in Southern California right now, right? Like I'd be lying. That's not a big alert. Some things naturally the Cubs can't match, and they probably couldn't match for worse on our part, the vision that the Dodgers have had for the past 10 plus years and continue to have.
How about everybody? It is funny. I just saw somebody in the chat mention, I think it was the Godfather, who, by the way, did not want to spend $750 million. Just about the whole Dave Roberts thing that we had going, Ryan, from when we were in Nashville, how it was like, oh no, he looked at his phone, and that was Ohtani was mad, and that's it. The Dodgers have taken themselves out of play for Shohei Ohtani, because he was. If you speak about Fight Club, there's no way you're getting back into Fight Club. The number one rule: don't mention Shohei's name. Listen, he might have been mad about it, but I think I said that right away. I was like, listen, if they offer him $600 million,
you can
he's
say
going to
whatever you
forget
want.
all about that. They mentioned
$700 million.
Yeah, and that was another thing Kevin Kaduk mentioned on the Chicago Sports podcast. Hey, do you think it's going to go 600 million, over 600 million? And I said right away, no.
Yeah.
Then that's because my head was thinking. I jumped from 600 million to 700 million. I was like, that's insane. He'll never get 700 million, because we don't know 100% that he is a two-way player for much longer, coming off his second Tommy John. And I thought that, while he still had this massive price tag on him, I thought that was going to cost him some money.
I thought so too. I guess not.
Clearly it did not.
This is more
I
than
never guessed 700 million.
This is more than we thought.
610, 650, maybe 700.
This is more than we thought he was going to get, even before the surgery.
Yeah.
Like, we were like, 600, maybe a little bit more than that, not 700. And now, like you were saying, he has very real questions about, can he come back from this and be Shohei Ohtani on the mound? We have no idea if he could do that, because, Jameson Taillon has had 2 Tommy Johns, I believe. It's like the history of pitchers coming back from 2 different Tommy John surgeries is not very extensive history, and and performing at the level that Shohei Ohtani performed at is just never happened, right? So it's a lot. There's concerns, there's questions about his future as a pitcher, but the Dodgers are very clearly paying him with complete faith that he will get back to pitching like Shohei Ohtani. They're very clearly giving him this money because they believe he will be that two-way superstar that he's been for the last 3, 4, however many years, that he'll return to that level and be worth the money.
It looks like Luke hates Shohei Ohtani. That's the vibe I'm getting from you. That's really what it sounds like. You hate him. You're glad
he's a great player. He's a great player. I just don't know. And I know we say this every year when the next big contract comes out. I don't know about signing the guy to $700 million. Now he's the one guy that obviously we've said he's different. He's a unicorn. He's different. He's one of the best pitchers. He's one of the best hitters. And, he's in his prime. If he were 22 years old and he had no Tommy John surgeries and we had seen this success, I would say, okay, $700 million. But Brian Kenny on MLB Network, when we were there, brought up a great point. And he said, go back and average out his innings per year, what he has pitched so far up to age, what is he, 26? He said, I want you to go up in his 20s and just show me what his innings per season are. And I think he said it averaged out to 60 with not pitching this year. It'll be something like 68 innings. He's like, do you think that number is going to be higher in his 30s? And Mark DeRosa, who was Ohtani, had to pause and be like, no, probably not. Like, I mean, logic would tell you that's not going to happen. Now, don't get me wrong. The home run power and all the other stuff that he is still will be there. But is that worth $700 million?
Yeah. Well, there's a degree of uncertainty with Ohtani, right? He'll be entering 30 years old next season.
Right.
He's someone, to your point, Luke, who hasn't pitched an exhaustive amount of innings for an ace-type pitcher. To Ryan's point, 2 Tommy Johns. Not many guys have come back to have a career with the type of contract Ohtani. No one's had Ohtani's contract, but even from a pitcher's perspective, we're talking 30-ish plus million. These are rare unicorn type deals. There's no precedence whatsoever. The Dodgers have some confidence that the second Tommy John is not a problem. They have confidence that the bat will play up, the athleticism will play up. But from the Cubs' perspective and how their front office has operated within the last 3 years, they pay for high floors. That's why Dansby Swanson was signed. That's why Jameson Taillon was signed for the contract, which 4 years, $71 million in hindsight, given the market today, seems quite low. And with the floor at Taillon's worst last year was an every fifth day pitcher. This is how the Cubs operate. They want to ensure that they will get value out of their contracts. And if 700 million and the idea that they're not certain about post-second Tommy John surgeries and entering your mid-30s and the hitting and pitching duo and all of those issues that come with it, I'm not surprised the Cubs passed up on it. It's not how they've operated, even with the extreme example of a Shohei Ohtani on the market.
Is this the worst case scenario though, Ryan, for a Cubs fan out there? I know, listen, I think long term it's a crazy deal for the Dodgers, but they are going to be an absolute nightmare moving forward for a couple of years. I would have rather had him up in Canada, up in Toronto, and only had to worry about him if you got to a World Series. The fact that he's on the Dodgers, it's not the Cardinals at least.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess to look at it from a Cubs fan perspective, like it sucks that the Dodgers got better, right? Like, like I'm sure that because the Dodgers are the Dodgers, and even though they don't win every World Series, the only World Series they won was the pandemic shortened season. They're in the playoffs every year. They're in World Series contenders every single year. Like, and you just hear front office personnel from every team talk about it. Like, if you could just get there, like you have a shot to win. And yes, the Dodgers don't win every year, but you just see with even like these wild card teams getting in, Arizona Diamondbacks, the primary example from this year, making it all the way to the World Series. Like, if you can just get in, the more times you give yourself a chance, you have a much, much better shot at winning. So yes, the Dodgers being who they are already and now adding Shohei Ohtani just makes them look like a world beater. Like, how you look at it, how can you beat that team? How can you beat the Braves, right? So for Cubs fans, I would look at it as like, yeah, it sucks to see competition getting better and better outside of your team, while right now you're still sitting here trying to figure out what to do. But I will say, you mentioned worst case scenario, and I don't look at it like that because there are still ways to improve this team this year. Cody Bellinger's still out there, obviously. Like, people have been in our chat hating Rhys Hoskins, which I think wouldn't be a bad option. John Morosi likes the fit. He told us on the podcast the other day. So there's ways. I mean, Yamamoto's still out there. If we're talking pitchers, Glasnow could still be traded for. There are ways to improve the roster. On paper, it probably won't look anything like the Dodgers, but they could put together a solid team. And you know what? I think even if we looked at it, next year was going to be tough to go in with World Series expectations anyway. Like, maybe Shohei changes that, but it was going to be tough to jump from an 83 win team, non-playoffs, to World Series favorites, right? Jed's talked about it. It's not going to be a one off-season thing to get to the Braves and Dodgers level. And so I don't see it as this was the offseason where they needed to get everyone, because they will be, if they can start opening this window more and more, some of these prospects are coming up and developing the right way. The contract to Dansby continues to work out. Him and Nico up the middle continues to work out. All these other side stuff, and they could start to add the big time free agents the next couple of years. Like, Soto's going to be a free agent next year. He's not going to sign an extension, most likely. You have another shot to get him there. So I guess this is a long way of saying, no, it's not worst case scenario, because there will still be opportunities for this Cubs team to improve this year and beyond. Again, it sucks to see. It would definitely suck for Cubs fans to see Ohtani go into the Dodgers. Absolutely. I can definitely agree with that. But it's not the worst case scenario, in my opinion.
No. I haven't seen anybody yet say that they think the Cubs should have offered $750 million. We have some super chats. Steven, you want to jump on and hit us with super chats? I see we got a bunch. We got
Fernando Rodriguez here, $1.99. Yeah. Can we get well-being check on my guy Cody, who is currently at the Tennessee-Illinois game? Is that right?
Well, Illinois lost already, so I'm sure that was a double whammy.
Illinois lost.
I'm going to text Cody right now.
Ohtani.
Wait, Illinois lost and Ohtani? Oh, man.
This is like got to be a bottom 3 day all time for Cody right now.
Yeah. We're texting Cody. Let's see if he's okay.
It is it's a double whammy for Cody today.
Yeah, it's gonna be real rough night.
We got $10 from Steven Nagishi. As a Japanese American Cubs fan, I knew he was a long shot to come. Asians, particularly Japanese, are notoriously conservative and don't want to change nor challenge. He was always a Dodger.
Meaning stay in California. I mean, we know the West Coast thing was obviously a big deal, but hey, 700 million is a big deal too.
Yeah, that would probably make me move too.
How do you convince him then? Was he even ever considering the Cubs, or were they just bargaining with them? Because I mean, come on, you were never going to outbid $700 million.
Yeah,
never. We all know the Cubs were never going to offer whatever their offer was. It wasn't $700 million.
That's that. Like Brendan said, that's just not how they operate. That's not how Jed has operated. And I don't know. If you look at that as like an indictment on the Cubs front office for not wanting to outbid a $700 million contract, that's your prerogative. But I don't look at it that way. That's a ton of money. And yes, Shohei Ohtani is a unicorn. He is clearly a team thought he was worth it. I look at it as that's a ton of money to give one player with those kind of injury concerns on one side of the ball.
I mean, I think a lot of fans, before we get to the next super chat, they look at not just 2023 and 2024, but they go back to like the Bryce Harper days in 2018 and 2019. And I'm not going to say those names that they signed to play middle infield, but they did sign certain players as their big contracts. And it's more of a growing snowball effect of, from fans' perspectives, an unwillingness from their front office or their ownership to go above some of those tax penalties and give the team the utmost success and utmost chance at winning a World Series. I think Bryce Harper was really kind of like the sticking point where his role in Philadelphia is legendary at this point. And that contract compared to Ohtani's now is literally half that, and it will continue to go up. It will take generations of fans, some fans, not saying you, Ryan, Luke, or Steven, or myself, it will take generations for fans to get over that, unfortunately, for Tom Ricketts, maybe.
I don't know. We got another one, Steven, another super chat?
One more super chat. Also, we have over 700 people watching. Please hit the like and subscribe button.
700, hit the like.
How many likes we got?
Who else is giving you therapy?
I don't know if you want therapy from me, though. Right. That's what I will say.
What's the price of therapy? We're free. Unless you
Cody still has not texted me back. No. We may have to call him.
Well, we know he can't be in Lake Michigan this time, so that's good. That's right. $5 super chat from Nick G. Here's something for the Resign Belly Fund. I wanted to ask you guys this. Now that the first big domino has fallen, what has to happen next for the Cubs?
Yeah, I mean that is the $1 million question, right? So
that is the multi-million-dollar question.
Morosi said he thinks the most likely thing is the Glasnow trade. All right, so let's start with Glasnow. Let's dream big and hope that Bellinger comes back. If they were able to get Glasnow, a number one starter for 1 year rental, and Bellinger, would that alone be enough? Could you see it with those two? Could you see a path to a successful offseason?
I mean, I can. Ryan's at Wrigley talking to Jen, and he has a more concrete idea of what they expect. The way I think about it is if you sign Bellinger, let's say $30 million, even though that might be ambitious at this point, but let's say $30 million for Bellinger. Glasnow, you trade for him $25 million. That's $55 million. According to Cott's expectations for 2024, the Cubs have 185 today committed against the 24 tax. 185 plus 30 plus 25 puts them around $240 million. If my math is correct, I have 1,000 people watching me right now. I may have miscalculated that in my brain, but I believe it's 240, right? Now you add in another signing. Let's say you go out and either sign or trade. Let's say you sign Rhys Hoskins for $20 million. 240 plus 20 gets you at 260. Now, given how the Cubs operated last year, they went into 2023 with about $8 million of room in the luxury tax before the trade deadline. If the Cubs sign Hoskins, if they sign Bellinger, they trade for Glasnow, they will have about $15 million of a pillow before 277, the top tier of the tax, to make moves at the deadline. That seems to be the max they'd be willing to go, given they left that much room open in 2023. It may not be enough. They may operate to go forth with a Shane Bieber type deal just to shrink down that 260 to, let's say, 250, because Bieber's only due $15 million. So I don't think it's enough with those three guys, even though they're three great players, because I'm assuming the Cubs will operate going into the year trying to stay below that 277.
Yeah, and you mentioned those three guys, and like Bellinger would be the long-term deal, right? Yeah. Glasnow would be a 1-year deal. Hoskins, I know Morosi on the show said he'd want a 2 or 3 year deal, but Hoskins, it could also be a pillow contract type thing, like with Bellinger this past season. So in one scenario, you have Bellinger locked up long-term money, but even if it was 20 million and 25 million, Hoskins and Glasnow, that's 45 million that will be freed up for 2025. So if you were to get Bellinger this offseason, you still have a lot of money, and that's not including the guys whose contracts are up after 2024. Like, you have a lot of money coming off the books. If those are the other two you signed, or you trade for Glasnow and you sign Hoskins to a 1-year deal, you are still getting $45 million off the books for next winter, when, again, a guy like Juan Soto is going to be a free agent, right? So getting, like, again, Cody Bellinger would be the long-term piece. He's a long-term money. Great. I think, depending on what the Cubs would have to sign him for, would be a very good deal to make. But like, you're not putting all your eggs in the basket with guys you might acquire this offseason. You're not ruining your financial flexibility by getting Glasnow or Hoskins. And even though people, like, I've seen people saying they don't want Hoskins. I get that, because he is coming off an injury of his own, a long-term or a season-long injury. I get that. But if you're signing him for a 1-year deal, like, that's not a bad 1-year deal. Like, there aren't really no bad 1-year deals for a guy who has the kind of potential he has shown prior to the injury. So again, I think I look at it as you can still improve this roster, and potentially by a lot, if you get those three guys, while not sacrificing financial flexibility and having the flexibility later on to go after bigger superstars than who Glasnow or Hoskins might be, or even Bellinger.
It is a huge could, though, right? Like, I've said all along, if they didn't get one of Ohtani, Soto, or Bellinger, I think it's going to be really hard to not only satisfy your fan base. So 2 of the 3 are gone. One, it could end up being too expensive, but the one thing this team lacks is star power. And it lacked it last year, even with Bellinger. So that's why I find, yes, they're looking to improve the team, but you have to remember, they're looking to improve a team that they've already potentially taken Bellinger out of. And you couldn't have had, he was your best player last year.
Yeah.
So sorry, Brendan, I didn't want to say that about Nico or Dansby, but Bellinger was the best player on the team last year. And so
if you sign off now, no.
If you take him up, not only offensively, he was one of your, even though he didn't win the Gold Glove, defensively, he was so critical for you, because you could put him at first, you can put him at center. They are getting, last year, they were in that dangerous position, teetering on the brink of disaster by missing out on all of the shortstops, and they saved face, and they got Dansby Swanson. This is a way trickier, way more expensive route this time around this offseason. But boy, they're going to have to get really creative. If they don't get Bellinger at a reasonable price, it's going to get crazy for Jed Hoyer to try and figure out a way to get this team better than they were last year.
You used the word creative. That's what it is. I do have an update. Cody did text me back. He says, "I am breathing." So there's the proof.
Not only is he breathing, we actually have a surprise guest. It's not Shohei Ohtani. It is Cody.
Oh, wow. He's alive.
This is dangerous. This is dangerous.
What's up, guys?
Are you here for the therapy session as well? Or
yeah.
How did you find the news? You were at the game and you looked at your phone?
No, I was at the bar post-game, so not even an hour after Illinois tore my soul to shreds. So one might say the good news is that we're all going to die someday anyway. That's the good news, guys. I don't care what anyone says. I would have given Ohtani $700. That's probably way too much damn money. But now we're sit here with all these questions. Like, are you going to get Bellinger? I don't know, because the Blue Jays and the Giants are going to be desperate. And I could just keep going. I'm not going to.
We have a rational Cody today.
but I'm
surprised.
I'm not surprised that it didn't happen in some aspects, but I'm just disappointed because now I don't know what they're going to do. Obviously I'm back on Bellinger being the number one priority, but I'm also like, are they going to be willing to go over their go over even what we even project him to get, right? Like Morosi told us on the show on Wednesday that he doesn't think he'll get more than 200 million. But now with the Giants missing out on Ohtani and the Blue Jays missing out on Ohtani, will they get desperate and like way overpay? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised.
Do you want him to, Cody? Do you want him to overpay? How much over? I'm okay with them overpaying, but how much are you willing to overpay? Like for me, 700 million would have been a cut. I wouldn't have gone that high on Ohtani, but what's a number that's so high for Bellinger that you'd be like, I can't believe 1 year. It was 1 year and there was some failure in between there. And this number is too much for me to bite off.
I'd say if it goes over 240 million, I would say that's too much. I mean, 220 seems like a lot, but I'm just like, this is how I feel right now. And I know it's just one really good year, but this offense needs if they don't even have Bellinger in the lineup right now, how are you going to not only make the offense as good as it was last year on top of making it better right now, since you don't have Soto, you didn't get Soto, you didn't get Ohtani, and Bellinger is the next best bat available. Hoskins, if you add him, great, but it's not. And this isn't anything against Rhys Hoskins. It's just like from on paper, it just doesn't feel like it's going to be anything great. And you're going to be relying on prospects coming up and lighting the world on fire every now and then and shit like that. And I don't know. I wanted to go into next year with expectations of NLCS or bust, or at least division or bust. And I guess maybe the division is still right there for the taking, since the division is not, no one's done anything major in the division. But I don't know. I thought the front office was going to be angry about how September ended, and they were going to do whatever it took to, get one of those two guys. And I understand that Soto was a ton, and the Yankees gave up way too much for him, and Ohtani got $700 million. But we're gonna be sitting in the studio in May or June talking about how the offense isn't good again, and you're gonna be thinking about, man, wish you would have paid Ohtani.
I thought Morosi talked Cody off the ledge.
I thought he had too, but Jay Bunker in the chat says now.
I can see his brain moving as we talk to him right now. We got to check in on Cody in 2 more hours. I don't like the way this is sounding from him.
Yeah, he's leaning towards rage. He's leaning towards
got a rational Cody today.
Listen, I want to believe that they're going to get creative and surprise me a little bit, but they just they haven't done anything like that to prove that they will. You know what I mean?
No one's done anything except for the Yankees and the Dodgers at this point, if we're being realistic.
All right, well, you tell me who's going to be better, who's going to go into this lineup and make the offense better then, because I don't know who it's going to be. If it's not Cody Bellinger, I don't know who's going to make the offense better than last year. That's right.
That's and
why are we saying it's not going to be Cody Bellinger is my point.
But if it is,
because they're not going to overpay for Bellinger. They're not. And if they do, I'll be surprised, and I'll give credit where credit is due, but I don't see it. I don't see them going over 200 million for Bellinger.
Jay Bunker in the chat is right, though, Cody. Overpaying is part of it now. You're a big market team. You are a big market team. You're the Cubs, and if you have to overpay, I agree with you. I don't think they will, but they should. They should.
Yeah.
Listen, you lost Stroman potentially, and you've lost Bellinger, and that was a team that won 83 games. And frankly, I don't know if we thought they were going to win 83 games for most of the season. And that's probably, we say, I've said, listen, they were 1 game away from beating out the team that went to the World Series. That's true, but they were also the other team that had massive losing streaks, and they probably finished right where they should have, out of the playoffs, because they were a roller coaster ride. And signing Craig Counsell isn't going to win you 10 more games next year. I don't believe that. I think it's an improvement. I think it was worth the $8 million, but he's not going to add 10 wins to the team next season. You know what's going to add wins to the team next season? Re-signing Bellinger, going out and getting Glass now, and then adding from there. You can't just say, oh, we need Bellinger back. We do need Bellinger back just to get back to where we were, just to get back to the level we were at. And then you got to replace Stroman.
Yeah.
I mean, the chat is spiraling right now. They're trying to make all this work. And I think the chat is a representation of Cody's brain right now, trying to make this work. But in reality, where the Cubs likely see this team is with a lens of great uncertainty. And you can make the argument that they are the ones responsible for their uncertain state, but they are likely trying to map out a direction forward that maximizes playoff chances in the next 5-year window. Where I differ and where I align more so with the fans' perspective is that my upfront risk in 2024 and 2025, I am willing to accept more risk. I am willing to make those trades to get a Juan Soto type player. I am willing to spend more money on Cody Bellinger because the way I operate, and I said this on the show with Corey, I do think that there's some validity in this. It's difficult to project baseball environments 2 years from now. I don't know where this team's going to be in the 2025 offseason. I don't know if there's going to be another big market shift. I don't know if another big regional sports network is going to go bankrupt. There's so much uncertainty. And I hate to say this, we have 1,000 viewers right now. Like, I'm just as stupid as you. You have no idea where this team is going to be in a year. And I hate to say it too, despite some of the really smart people in like R&D offices, they're kind of stupid too. You can't project baseball. There's so much error in projecting baseball. And from my perspective, let's all accept that and maybe have a little bit more risk up front while still accounting for the risk on the back end, but be a little bit more urgent. And that's where I differ from the front office, but also at the same time, it's why I'm talking to you guys right now. And I'm not, in a front office because I'm stupid and I'm willing to accept more of that risk.
I just don't want the Cubs to go all youth movement. Please do not count solely on the prospects that you have built up in the farm system. It was a great idea. It seems like you've done a pretty good job of it. Your farm system's top 5 now. But moving forward, please, just because you missed out on Ohtani and Soto now, do not rely on only the prospects to get you over the hump. Because if you do that, we're going to be sitting here for 15 more years going, because the odds of prospects being what Bryant, Baez, and don't forget, they got guys like Lester. So you still have to add to this team other ways. And they have to be aggressive moves this offseason.
Yeah, in that to go back to the 2016 window, as we always do, the parallelism with that, they offset the risk of Bryant's because you had 200 inning plus projections for the next 4 years in John Lester. You had Jake Arrieta coming off a 229 inning pitch season in which he won the Cy Young at an historically great second half. You had a Ben Zober signing to make up for some of the potential whiff concerns, historical concerns that give you a variable offensive projection. They had the risk offset with the prospects. Right now, the risk offset on the current Cubs lineup and even the pitching rotation doesn't match their overall risk. They need to offset the risk of a Justin Steele injury, and given the forearm concerns and only the 175 innings, they don't have that risk offset. So I think from Cody's perspective and my perspective and a lot of fans' perspective, they want to offset that risk. We're willing to accept some of the prospects and the growing pains that go with it, but offset the risk somehow by getting a certain player, getting some assurance that we're going to have at least a contributing player or two. That way we can allow these prospects to develop.
We have another super chat too out there whenever Steven wants to jump in. Go ahead, Cody.
I was just going to end my part being here just by saying that, like, I know I'm disappointed right now, even though, like, it was always a dream. But like, I don't want to go into next season with like having to rely on prospects, like Stuck said. And, you know me, I will find a way to talk myself into it. There's death taxes in my delusional brain, right? Like it is what it is. But I just think this is now time for Jed to show that he can be creative. Make a trade for someone that no one's talking about. Before the season ended, I was all about trading for Jose Ramirez. Looks like Morel's going to he's getting all this time at third in the Dominican right now. So maybe that's not really a serious thing or anything that they would actually consider. But like something like that, trade for someone. I don't know. There's all these teams out there don't want to pay their guys because they're cheap or whatever. And like we've seen other teams pull off ridiculous trades. A team in our own division multiple times. 2 teams in our division, if you want to count the Brewers last year with William Contreras. But like that's basically where I'm at now with how they're going to make the offense better. Bellinger is still number 1 on the priority list for me. And if the Cubs overpay a little bit for him, I'll applaud them because they're in kind of a desperation mode, in my opinion, if they want to at least have the offense they had last year. And then, you know, maybe some guys are better next year. And if they go in with that kind of mentality, we're going to see how it plays out. But they can't go into next season with an offense that's worse than last year. And right now that's what it feels like. So I'm going to go drink my high noon now because I'm sad.
And Goose Island. Ask for Goose Island.
And I have a Goose Island that's sitting right next to it.
Take care of yourself, please. I'm worried about you.
Cody Del Mendo, live from Tennessee. Maybe a little buzzed. Definitely a lot disappointed.
It's a little buzzed, yeah. But still coherent, surprisingly.
I don't know. I just keep looking at it as like the doom and gloom mindset right now is just I don't get it. And like, don't get me wrong. Like if we get to opening day or even to spring training and like the roster is not improved, like absolutely Jed deserves all the criticism. Carter Hawkins deserves all the criticism. Like the Cubs deserve all the criticism that gets thrown at them. But to like sit here right now and like be doom and gloom and say this like the offseason's a bust because 2 big superstars are off the board. I don't get that, man. I don't get that mindset. Like there's still every chance in the world they go and sign Bellinger. They're players for Yamamoto. I don't know how much. Like I don't know how big their chances are of getting him, but whatever. But like I don't understand the mindset of just like being doom and gloom right now.
Let's turn my super chat, Steven, because I can't stay on here forever. Because I could complain about it.
Yeah, that worked.
I could talk about this for 4 hours, but my soul can't. So what do we got, Steven? Another super chat?
For 500 units from Grapefruit. I guess what bums us out the most is what Corey said the other day. Why can't we sign the close to sure things or stars? Why can't we be first class?
Yeah. 500 units. What does that even mean? Is that Bitcoin?
I don't know what currency it is.
Taking Bitcoin now for the?
I don't know what the currency is, so I just went with units.
Yen. That says 500 yen. We got. I don't know what the value of that is. Does anybody know? It seems like it's a lot.
It's your lucky day. It's $700 million to us. We get to split it 4 ways.
And we just got another one from Rick Bernico. Does anyone think the Cubs are really going to get any of the top targets? Their MO was to leak interest, procrastinate, let the big boys get away. That's the doom and gloom that is Cubs fandom right now, I think, without getting Shohei Ohtani.
It's crazy. I don't get the mindset of being doom and gloom before it happens, right? Like if we're sitting here 4 or 5 months from now and the Cubs are not vastly improved, they didn't get anyone this offseason, whatever, they're relying on prospects, then totally be doom and gloom and be critical of the front office, of course. Like we're sitting here on December 9th, man. Like Shohei Ohtani the biggest domino just fell like an hour and a half ago. Like, there's still things that can happen that can improve this roster and make 2024 a better season. And I just don't get the mindset of assuming nothing's going to happen.
It depends how you interpret doom and gloom. Is this team on the path to be the next Braves dynasty potential, on the path to be the next Dodgers perennial contender? It's unlikely, but few teams are. That's the reason why a lot of these front offices are turned over. It's more likely than not that the Cubs will have a new front office in 5 years, just how it always is in 5 to 10 year windows. That's how baseball operates. But at the same time, if you are doom and gloom, baseball is the dumbest sport possible. I keep saying this. It's really if you think about the concept of baseball, who the hell invented this thing? You have 3 strikes, use a stick to hit a baseball, and all of a sudden, teams like the Diamondbacks fall themselves in the World Series. Teams like the 83-win Cardinals win the World Series, right? This is the dumbest sport possible. So I can't be doom and gloom, just like I can't anticipate the Cubs being a perennial contender, because you're listening, you're watching like literally the dumbest thing humans have created.
Where's Corey at tonight, by the way?
I love it. What's that?
Where's Corey tonight?
Corey has some family responsibilities.
Ah, gotcha.
That's what he's
I understand.
doing right now. Yeah.
I understand, but he's sitting wherever he's at right now. He's sitting in the corner, just stewing over this whole thing.
Probably Corey. Usually he stews about everything I say, and he, off camera, he usually screams at me. So that's what people don't see. He's a very mean person off air to me. I still love him. But by the way, I came to Chicago last week. You guys all left the city. You all left the state of Illinois.
The funniest thing I've ever seen was a Slack channel chat on my phone that says, "Hey, do you think you guys? What's the studio schedule like? Can I slide in and do a show?" And I'm like, "We're all in Tennessee."
I didn't know you were going to Tennessee. It was a last-second deal. You guys were on my mind, my CHGO family, and you all abandoned me.
But what a coincidence that the one time all year Brendan's come to Chicago just happens to be the week we're not there. What a coincidence.
I was there in May, and then you left the state as well. No, you were at Wrigley Field doing your job, unfortunately. Yeah. But I saw Luke. Luke and I had some fantastic photos together, by the way. The lighting was beautiful on the roof.
Yep.
Yeah.
Several magazines said, like, we'd like to put that on the cover if we could. Time Magazine is one of them. Time Magazine.
Yeah.
If it still exists.
Yeah. We could be Taylor Swift for the cover.
The magazine still exists? Does anybody still buy a magazine?
You're showing your age now, Luke. I can see that.
Anybody else in the chat?
The CHGO Sports account has just tweeted what our Shohei shirt would have been. Would you guys like to see it?
Yes.
Let's see it.
I don't like this stuff.
Yeah,
well, this reminds me of those like shirts they give out for like the Super Bowl winners that end up not winning it. They send them to overseas or whatever. This is what it is.
See, I liked the idea, and we didn't get to Winterland in time for me to dress up as Santa and do it, but I wanted hey.
Oh man, that would have been great.
Hey.
That would have been great.
Or show ho ho.
Well, you can do that once Justin Steele strikes him out when they come to Wrigley Field.
Yeah. Also, before we hop off, rest in peace to the tungsten arm O'Doyle tweet. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
You know the tungsten arm? It's the one that's like Mike Trout did something crazy and Shohei Ohtani's done something that hasn't been done since tungsten arm O'Doyle in 1921 as the Tigers beat the Angels 8-3.
Well, Luke just learned how to tweet 3 weeks ago, so this is news to him.
Yeah, so. I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's actually called X, by the way.
Listen, again, we'll break in if there's a big Cub signing. This may start a flurry of activity. That's kind of like we were waiting for Shohei to kind of open the floodgates. Now let's see if that actually happens. Or this also, as I pointed out, I think last week I was saying, this is why Bellinger hasn't, like people always knew because of Boris that he was going to wait, but this is why. Because now teams are going to be panicked to try and sign Cody Bellinger. I believe that, right?
And now the market has risen too. Now the market has risen. Price of superstar player is going up.
I mean, one question I have though before we finish this, like Morosi said to you guys, there's like all this regional sports network stuff going on where owners may not have their projected revenue. I do wonder if that it affects Bellinger's price as a result of the Cubs having marquee and a more confident projection of revenue. Maybe they will go out and overspend the bidders and get their guy. That's my optimism.
I sure hope so. I mean, we will do an emergency podcast if the Cubs sign with Yamamoto. I just might not be on it. So if the Godfather wants to host a podcast here, in a couple hours, and I'm off doing Christmas lights or whatever, like, cool.
Well, you can just get your phone and, you can live stream.
Cody's shown he can do it from anywhere, yeah.
And he's had a few drinks too. At least you can try to do it, putting up Christmas lights.
You can do it in Target if you need
Was
to.
Cody slurring or was it my feed?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. There might have been a little Illinois sadness in there.
You can see it in the eyes.
Yeah, a little Illini sadness mixed with a little bit of Ohtani disappointment.
Yep, and overall just a little bit of depression too. All three mixed.
Yeah, mix it together and you got yourself one ugly cocktail. No question about it. All right. Anybody else we need to get to here? What do we have? Like 700, 800 people pretty much the whole time
We
we've
had
been out
almost
here?
800 people, I think, but not even 200 likes last I checked. Make it make sense.
Yeah. I liked it. I went on YouTube and I pressed my own like.
Thank you.
Did my part.
Let's finish it with what Kevin says in the live YouTube chat. Get over it. Move on. At least he isn't in the Central Division. That's good advice. That is good advice.
That. Sometimes you need to be slapped in the face with reality. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Make sure you hit the like button on the way out. We appreciate it. 5-minute breaking news. CHGO Cubs podcast as 10 years, $700 million for Shohei Ohtani to the Dodgers. He announced it on his Instagram today. He won't be coming to the Cubs. Now they got to figure out what plan C is, I guess, because if he was plan A and Soto was plan B, who is plan C, if you will? Just remember, Dansby Swanson was not plan A last year, and that worked out pretty well. So maybe they can save face here, find another path that works out well and gets the Cubs back on the right track. Subscribe to the CHGO Sports YouTube page. Is our Die Hard deal still going on tonight?
I think it's through the weekend.
Through the weekend. On sale, $59.99, $59.99 for the Die Hard sale right now. Official members, you get all the content that Ryan and Brendan and Vinny Duber and all of our writers put together. You get the Discord. You get 20% off all of our merch all of the time. You get 20% off all of our events all of the time. And, of course, you get the Die Hard card, the CHGO Die Hard card, which now has been revoked from Shohei Ohtani, enemy number 1. Taking it back, Shohei. Man. We're taking back Shohei. The Die Hard card we offered you. And that was unlimited, too.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast. Like I said, we'll be back here if there's more to talk about. Thanks to everybody in the live chat, all 800 of you that jumped in and out and all of that. And thanks for all the comments. Until next time, hopefully for the Bellinger signing.
Someone. Just give me someone.
Someone. Until then, fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.